My pitch to you today is going to be that we can best address this question of what is the UK good for by thinking not just about our economists and our politicians, but about our writers and about our creatives. Because actually I'm going to suggest that we need to think about narrative as a lens and as a potential tool or a weapon in these debates. Because the future of the Union rests on winning a narrative battle for hearts and minds, not just the pounds and pence that have been referenced. Debates about the future of the Union all too often fail to acknowledge, or sometimes even fail to identify, the forming function of culture and narrative in conceptualising unity in the contemporary period. While there are very clear narratives and loud narratives about why the Scots, the Welsh, the Northern Irish should all feel proud about their own kind of identity, there's a comparative poverty of stories today about why we should all love being part of a UK. And as a result, we've seen the birthing of a new kind of patriotism all across these islands at the expense of British identity, and obviously Brexit hasn't helped that. Lots of surveys proliferate on the subject, and they all attest to the same thing, that people think of themselves now as, as coming from the United Kingdom third, after their state, after their region or their county. Another one of my students, when I was actually teaching a session on Brexit and British identity a few weeks ago, likened the United Kingdom to her own warring stepfamily and asked me why it is even called the United Kingdom if no one gets on. It's basically bullshit British branding. Now, this notion of a bullshit Britain has really played on my mind ever since, because what it's speaking to is a fundamental doubt, a doubt about the purpose of the Union, its status, its power, and its potential today. And it made me think, how on earth has this happened? And one important factor for me is that we have stopped telling stories about the UK, and instead we're just falling back on the cultural iconography of our past. The United Kingdom, much like the north of England, is a victim of stock image syndrome. The Union Jack, the last night of the proms, our historical castles and our galleries. If you Google United Kingdom, these are the cultural symbols and these are the cultural narratives that are perpetually used to define us to the rest of the world and to ourselves. And don't get me wrong, for all the journalists out there, stock images are great, and they offer these instantly recognisable snapshots and reference points. But one thing they don't do is tell us stories about our future, about where we're going. By imagining the UK only through the stories and narratives of its past, we're actually failing to articulate its relevance as a blank page, one that can be authored by the next generation. The challenge for the narrative of a union is to write the U in the UK, to tell stories of the Union that can resonate with each and every one of us. Now, in her own recent review of a novel in the New Statesman, because Nicola Sturgeon is an avid reader, she did say that, quote, "I love and marvel at the power of a story to lift us all from our own reality." Now, she's bang on. Storytelling does this. It removes us from the mire of economics and political turmoil, and it reframes our focus on those hearts and minds issues. And as Brexit has proved, economic rationales are no match for a powerful narrative that wins hearts and minds across national boundaries. The United Kingdom is not only conceptualised in the global imagination by its cultural iconography, but it is held together by our shared cultural institutions, like the BBC, the British Council. Post-war complacency about these institutions and post-Brexit Cummings-inspired contempt for them is going to be a real problem for our union. The political vibe of the moment that these institutions, like the Union itself, have been regarded as eternal, unchanging, they're going to be around forever. We all know forever is not a given. It never was. If we want to speak effectively for our national union, we need to defend the institutions that unite us culturally as a priority. The UK is the cultural capital of the world, and yet the problem of the union is all too often framed as a culture clash. What on earth is the incentivisation for the union? We need new stories about identity, about integration, about movement, about opportunity, and about innovation. We need to reconnect the union through narrative, and many of us have already been approached about this festival of Brexit. I don't think we should have a festival of Brexit. I think we should have a festival of union. We need a way of enabling dialogue. For any of us who've been in a relationship for a very long time, it's always good to ask, why are we still together? Maybe just in your head. To put it in terms my students might feel more comfortable with, if our 4 nations were on Tinder today, would they swipe right or would they swipe left on each other? This relationship of ours has been around for absolutely ages. So how can we reinvigorate what's good about it? And how can we overcome what challenges that actually challenge us today? How can we do that without it becoming monologic? Any relationship is a choice, not a given. And you shouldn't have to sacrifice your own identity to be part of that successful relationship. The crafting of new narratives of union can reframe our meaningful relationship and create one that is not just passively inherited, but is renewed and refreshed with each generation. Contemporary patriotism for the UK will not be called unionism. It will not fly a flag or be defined by purely economic rationales for togetherness or dictated by middle-aged men in suits. It will be one of diversity. It will be crafted and told by many voices. A new narrative of the union, or narratives, should represent it as it is today, a glorious and continuous work in progress. If we want to be something more than the kingdom formerly known as united, we have to facilitate and devote time and resource to a cross-nation, cross-political discussion about what the UK is and what it could be if we place creative innovation and narrative agency back in the hands of its greatest asset, its people. Thank you.